Oye, me chicos. All right, we back to the fun stuff. No more. We're not doing the politics thing right now. We're doing. We're going to go back to talking about manga and anime, and we're going to do a what you're reading. What this means is I'm just going to tell you guys all the stuff that I got on my plate to read and things that I have read recently. So this is going to be just fun stuff talking about manga and anime and comic books and all that kind of stuff because that's what I want to talk about. And it ought to be fun. You know, I got a couple of things here. We're gonna start with. I should have turned my camera on. We're gonna start with Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillip Incognito. So this is a comic book series from several years ago. I don't have the book in my hand. I'm looking at it on my shelf, but it's a pair of graphic novels. Obviously, they were released as floppies. It tells the story of a supervillain that um, basically is in witness protection because he was a snitch. Um, and it's a really fun series, man. I definitely think that people should go pick it up. I know that it's pretty old, but because it's old, it's pretty cheap and it's not that expensive. I suggest that people pick it up if they like comic books, especially if they like um, crime comics. Let me tell you this. I want to be very honest. Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, you cannot go wrong with anything they do together. Criminal is extremely good. I got also here all four volumes of Kill or Be Killed. I finally got all four volumes. For a long time, I only had two. Um, I hadn't read the series of Kill or Be Killed in a long time. It's about a guy who, a serial killer, a, mostly a vigilante, is probably a better usage of the term. And he goes around and finds himself killing mobsters and um, drug dealers and such. And he gets caught up in this entire web of killing people. But it's very much a mental health story as well because I don't want to spoil it, but it's very much a story about an individual with declining mental health and how that affects his behavior and his thought patterns. And it's a very well written series and it's a very well drawn series. Sean Phillips is a tremendous artist. It's not like the most glossy, most beautiful art, but it really serves to ground the story. And if you like Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips on anything, I think their best stuff is Incognito and Kill or Be Killed and Criminal. Because Criminal is a book series. It takes a lot after Frank Miller's Sin City, where it all operates within the same city, in the same general area with some of the same characters, but they're in different positions and different situations. So Criminal is fantastic. I heard they're going to make a live action TV show out of it. I don't know if it's actually going to happen or not, but um, I suggest people get the comic book series Criminal. I don't know how many volumes it is. I think they're still making volumes of it. I got like 6 volumes. They also did another series. Um, what's it called? Um, oh man, it's let me. I gotta get up and look at it. Shit. It is called. This is Criminal, not Sleeper. What is it? Where is it? Where did I put it? I'm spinning my shelf here. I'll get it to you eventually. I forget what the series is called, but it's another graphic novel series from the same creative team of Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. But it features a private detective who operates out of a theater, and he just goes around solving crimes and things like that. It's really fun. Oh, here it is, right here. No wonder I was looking in the wrong place. It is It is what series? The Reckless series. The same creative team. It says Reckless. The second volume, I believe, is Follow Me Down. The third is Destroy All Monsters, and the fourth is The Ghost in You. But they're all the same characters. It's episodic, which means it builds off of itself for a little bit, but it's mostly standalone stories that you can read and really get a sense of how great the universe is. These guys are fantastic. You know, I love everything that they do. I still don't have everything that they do. I'm probably gonna get the Fade Out next, and then work my way to Fatal. But pretty much, if it got Sean Phillips and Ed Brubaker on it, I'm in to read it. I'm not even gonna lie to you. They are extremely good, extremely good. So, what other comics am I reading? I am reading Conan the Barbarian. This is the only, well, there's only two books I'm reading in floppy form. That doesn't mean I'm, well, that's not even fair. Probably four, because Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I'm reading that. The Jason Aaron TMNT. I haven't completed it yet. I haven't read the 12th or the 13th issue yet, or the 12th issue yet. I haven't read the 12th one. I haven't seen the finale. I only go to the comic shop once a month. So it's probably sitting in my box because I haven't been there. I went last week, so I'm not going to go again until right before Thanksgiving, maybe. So it's going to be a while before I get that box. They don't know that though. But Conan the Barbarian, Jim Zub, various artists, absolutely tremendous stuff. If you like Conan the Barbarian, if you're into the sword and sorcery lore, I absolutely suggest you read Jim Zub's Conan the Barbarian. It's so good. I'm getting it in floppy form. Usually, I get the magazine Savage Sword of Conan too. Got both of those, and they're very good. I don't need to really go into any detail about Conan the Barbarian though. I think that if you're familiar with the brand, you know what's up. Uh, Neji Savage says, "Have you read any of the other Rippaverse comics besides ISOM?" No, no. I read enough when I read those two. I read the first two ISOM books and was like, okay, you know, that's that's enough. That's enough. I read enough. All right. I just finished I want to stay on comics. Kaya. I talked about Kaya in every version of what I've been reading. Kaya is a comic book series by Wes Craig. He's a writer and artist. This is a creator owned. I think it comes through Image. Is it Image? Uh, I believe it's Image. Let me see who the, yeah, it's Image. It's a really good series. It's a it's a fantasy series about a young lady with a metal arm and her brother who is like this wizard. Who's he's like a he's a young boy, but he's like destined to be this great wizard or whatever. And she's his protector. And basically, they go on adventures and stuff like that. So it's tremendous. Um, this is very good. It's a very good series. I've been telling people to read it, and I don't know if people are actually picking it up or not. But I definitely suggest people read it. It's called Kaya, Kaya. There's I think 3 volumes already released on graphic novels. I've been getting them in floppy form, so I don't know how many of them it is, but it's on issue 30. Yeah, issue 30 is the last one I picked up, and the story is really good because now they're starting to separate. Kaya is we're finally starting to see flashbacks of why their relationship is so contentious, and it's because her little brother has always been seen as the golden child, and he was favored by her mother and everything, and it was really good. It was really good. I mean, it's one of those series that a lot of people are not really looking at, but Wes Craig is a really good artist. He also worked a lot on Deadly Class, which was a Rick Remender series, which I highly suggest everybody picks up. Uh, I think I've talked on this channel before about Deadly Class. Or I think I said I was going to watch the TV show, but it got canceled. So who cares? But Deadly Class is phenomenal. I suggest everybody read that. All right. I've also been picking up these Mega Man series. They've been doing these sort of this collection of one shots called Mega Man Timeline. I've been picking those up. I kind of ordered those with, not really sure what they were going to be. Um, they're more expensive than I thought they were going to be, but it's only going to be like 5 of them. So I'll bite the bullet and take those. But it is what it is. They're okay. They're not great, but they're okay. I also picked up this huge Static Shock, DC's finest. For the first time in seemingly forever, DC Comics decided to reprint the first 12 milestone Static Shock comics. Actually, they printed out the first 15 in this volume. So this volume has the first 15 Static Shock comics. I read these, but I could never find them in physical form. So I just bought this. This is $40, but I got it. Yeah, I paid the full $40 for it. Next time, it's not going to happen. But the Dwayne McDuffie Static Shock series is that's what the cartoon was based on. Now the comics are a little bit grittier than the cartoon series, obviously, but a lot of the themes are the same. But I love Static Shock. Obviously, Icon is my favorite, but Static Shock is really good too. So they got the first 15 DC Finest. They put out a volume. I highly suggest it. I haven't even cracked it open yet because I had so much stuff to chew through. I haven't even opened that yet. What else? I've been reading 100 Bullets, which is it's Brian Azzarello, Eduardo Aurelio. I can't see the writer's name from here, but it's another series that's kind of based off of like Sin City, where it's the same characters operating in the same universe, but they're kind of standalone stories, but they interact, they build upon each other. They've been releasing a 2025 version of it, but it's taken too long, so I'm about to go back and get the other ones. I'm on volume like 4 of that. But the theme of the series is that an individual shows up and offers you a gun with untraceable bullets that basically you can go fix your life or go punish the person who has ruined your life. And basically, there's no consequences. So you get a whole lot of backstory to the characters and you know um, what they plan to do with the gun or whether they're going to do it and that sort of thing. And then it branches out into secret society stuff, and it's engaging. It's not. It's I like grounded crime-based stories, so this is very good for me. For other people, maybe it's not so much, but I really like it. I like uh, I like the series. Uh, let's see here. Islamic State says apparently MVP is partnering with Jake Edelstein to write a manga about Malcolm X. Oh, that sounds riveting. That sounds riveting. Um, Mongo's as much happier discussing reading though, but I'm trying to ignore it. Talk about wrestling. We're gonna be talking about wrestling tomorrow, of course. Do I read a lot of actual novels? No, actually. I have a novel that's sitting on my desk that I haven't read. It's Pronto by Elmore Leonard. Elmore Leonard is a good writer. Um, so I'm gonna get around to reading this eventually. But usually when I do read novels, I read Donald Goines novels because they're short and they're easily digestible. The last novel I tried to read, and it wasn't because it was a novel that I couldn't finish it. It was because it was so poorly written, it was boring. Was the second book in the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series. I think it was the girl who played with fire or something like that. I forget what it's called. The girl who got stung by a bee. I don't know, but it's the second book in that series. The first book was really good, but the second one, oh my god, it's all it's all degeneracy. It's all, the Elizabeth, what's her last name? Elizabeth Salander. She's having sex with underage cabana boys, and there's threesomes. I'm like, why is this? What is this? Like, it took forever to get into what the book is actually about, which is that Elizabeth Salander is framed for murder, and it took like 8 or 9 volumes to get there for real. And I just got bored. It's still sitting in my drawer in my desk in my office because that's where I was reading it. Um, and if a book sits in my office that long, 'cause it's been in there a year at least. And if it's sitting there that long, usually I give it away by that point in time. I'll just throw it on the unit so the patients can read it. But it's been kicking my ass. I'm gonna try to finish it because I do like that series. But maybe I just like the first book and I don't like the series because I'm not going to finish that second book. It was that bad, dog. Um, it's one of those things that it takes too long to get started. It takes too long to get going. And I could see why it was a popular series, considering it had a female character at a time where there wasn't a lot of female characters. She's like a neurodivergent female character too, who is like in complete control of her own sexuality and all this sort of stuff. She's fighting back against people who are sexually abusing her, and she's taking control of her own life and all that sort of thing. At the same time, though, can we get to the fucking story? What the story is actually about. And I was like, man, that was not very good. Didn't like it. Didn't like it. Um, Love about comics keep stories, heroes, and villains consistently. Well, not all the time. It's not all the way consistent, but most of the time it is. Um, Dennis King says, just jumping on. What are your favorite books to read? Well, it depends. I like reading history books, sociology, that sort of thing. I'm going to talk about actual books that I've read in a minute. I just want to talk about the manga and comic books and stuff I read first, and then I'm gonna get into some of the other books that I've been reading. I spend a great deal of time reading. I spend more time reading than I do anything else. I talk about wrestling on this channel, but I read even at work. I'm reading. Like I got a book on my desk, and I'm looking at typing or whatever on the computer. But usually I'm in between breaks and stuff like that. I'm reading. I'm constantly reading. So I do that more than anything, you know. So, but I'm going to talk about some other books that I read, like history books. But I'm always reading like sociology books. I'm always reading. I print out weird things like when I do the like I did the video on the Ku Klux Klan. I printed out all of that stuff. I printed out some other stuff too. I just threw it all away today because I didn't want to talk about it. And I was like, man, after I did that Black Power thing, I was like, I don't want to talk about this stuff that much anymore. So I just threw all that shit away. So I just called it a day. Like, yeah, we'll get back to it one day, but not today. Not anytime soon. Maybe next year. So there's that. Ragnarok is the next comic book series. I got the first volume and the third volume. I can't find the second. It's Walter Simonson, writer and artist. I got the floppies of volume 3, but I went and bought the graphic novel version as well so I can read it all at one time. Again, phenomenal series. It tells the story of Thor post Ragnarok. Thor is a mystical character. It does not is not owned by Marvel Comics. It's in the public domain, so you can write Thor stories too, but you have to make it fundamentally different from Disney's version of Thor. And in Walter Simonson's Ragnarok, if you know anything about Norse mythology, there is a story of Ragnarok where the gods are killed and they have, and the earth is not destroyed but overrun with villainies. And Thor misses the big battle of Ragnarok because obviously there's a way that thing is supposed to go, and Thor is one of the heroes of Ragnarok. He was supposed to be there, but in Walter Simonson's version of Ragnarok, Thor was kidnapped and he was held, so he missed the Battle of Ragnarok. So this story is all about, okay, now all the gods are dead except Thor. He's the last one left, and now he's got to go on this revenge tour against all of the traitors and villains of the various 9 realms of Norse mythology. It's tremendous. If you're a fan of Walter Simonson, what he did with Thor and for Marvel, then you'll love this. If you like what he did with Orion, with DC, he worked on the Fourth World series, Orion. I think he did the first and second volumes. Those were very good as well. Walter Simonson is another guy I suggest that people pick up pretty much anything that he's involved with. His artwork is very Kirby like. I love it. It's tremendous. I've already read this series, but I'm reading it again. I'm on the and it's even better on the second read. And I had only read volume 3 because I didn't know the series existed before I saw the floppies in like 2020. But I went back and got the first volume too. That was pretty good. I wish I could have read the second, but there's only 3 volumes out. So the first volume might be pretty easy to find. I didn't spend a lot of money to get it on Amazon. And the third volume wasn't a lot of money. I got it off of like in stock trades. So it wasn't too bad. And I love the series. Unknown says, dying to see if DC ever make Catwoman animation movie one day. Love to see She-Cat in story with Cybercat. Seeing comic of it. Interesting story. Once friend, She-Cat turned into a villain. I'm not sure if I'm familiar with that. I read a lot of the Catwoman. I'm not sure if I recognize any of those names. Catwoman is an anti-hero usually. She's supposed to be a Batman villain, but she's pretty much positioned as being his love interest and sometimes sidekick. But she's pretty much a standalone character. I really do like Catwoman. Speaking of which, I got Catwoman, Trial of the Catwoman, which is a DC compact series. Uh, Written by Darwin Cook and Edwin Brubaker. Darwin Cook is the artist. Ed Brubaker is the writer. And this Catwoman series is pretty good. I definitely suggest people pick it up, especially since the DC compact series are only $9.99 a piece. I definitely people should definitely get those. Also, I do like Absolute Catwoman. She looks very good in the Absolute comics. Timu, it says, I've been chugging along working on a novel project, first in a trilogy about Rebecca, a clumsy theater girl who sees wrestling as this grand theater during the territory days. I've super enjoyed it. Pretty good. I've halted all of my writing projects for like 2 years. I've, I've ever since my laptop went down, I haven't been able to get a new one. It's again, my mom had cancer, my girlfriend had cancer. I should just save up money and maybe I'll buy myself one for Christmas, but I need to buy a laptop for real. I've been going off of this tablet for a long time. Unknown says, I didn't know you were a fan, DC Marvel fan. I am too. Animation love more than the live movies. Never a fan of live movies. More into cartoon. Keep it true to the characters. I agree. Um, I tried to watch the Aztec Batman series, not series, but the movie. It was terrible. All right, it was terrible. I think I talked about it on social media. I didn't even finish it. I just walked away from it when something better came on. Oh yeah, the purple attire Catwoman. That's from like the late '80s, early '90s. I think I got a I think I got a graphic novel of her in the purple suit. I think so. I usually pick those up out of nowhere. It's all right, man. I mean, I appreciate that people even care, but that's been a very difficult time, man. It's been financially taxing. Let's put it like that. It's been taxing financially. All right, what other comic books am I reading? Uh, I do got Batman: The Long Halloween. This is another DC compact. Was $9.99. Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. This is a classic, The Long Halloween. Um, I'm not sure that the animated movies do it justice, but The Long Halloween is extremely good, and I highly suggest anybody who is into Batman. Tim Sale art is phenomenal. All right, it is phenomenal, and Jeff Loeb's writing is very good too. This is another pairing where I suggest anything that they did together. Spider-Man Blue is one of my favorite Spider-Man stories. In fact, it might be my favorite Spider-Man story. It's during when they did the Marvel Color series. They did Daredevil Blue, no Daredevil Blue, Daredevil Yellow, which is one of my favorite Daredevil stories. It's now the Marvel Color series is about the biggest losses and of the Marvel characters. So like they're based around guilt. So DC Daredevil Yellow was about the death of Karen Page. So basically, how Daredevil met Karen Page, fell in love with Karen Page, and lost her. Obviously, Spider-Man is about Gwen Stacy, and Spider-Man Blue is about Gwen Stacy. Captain America White is about his relationship with Bucky Barnes, the young man who becomes the Winter Soldier. So, and then there's also a Hulk Gray, but I haven't read it because I'm not a Hulk fan. So I'm not really sure what the Hulk's story is, but I like the other three. I don't have a physical copy of Captain America White though. I'm gonna get one, and I haven't read it in a while either. But Spider-Man Blue is tremendous. I love that. But Tim Sale, Jeff Loeb, anything they do together is very good. What other comic books, specifically comic books, before we get into manga, have I been reading? Um, let's see. Well, I've been reading the Absolute series, the floppies anyway. Batman and Wonder Woman are pretty good. The Flash started out good, but I'm not interested anymore. Martian Manhunt. Look, the Green Lantern. I lost interest in Green Lantern halfway through the first issue. I haven't been back since. Flash. I liked the origin, like the beginning, but once they brought in the Rogues, I was like, I really don't care. I don't really look at the art. The art is very effeminate, and I'm like, why is the Flash like this? I don't want to read this. So I don't want to read this. So I stopped reading. So there's that. Timu says the owner of the secondhand comic book store, basically spent my childhood in, passed away. Rest easy, King. He always let me read everything. It was technically not allowed and told others no. That's fantastic. And I remember when that happened here. There was a guy who owned a comic book shop. I don't know if the guy died, but he disappeared. But it was actually not far from here. He had a secondhand comic book and bookstore, and I would go through there. That's where I picked up a whole lot of Vampirella magazines. I would go buy them about like 4 or 5 at a time. He would give me a deal on them. Let me sit there and flip through them and put them in order and all that kind of stuff. And next thing I know, I went up there one day and he wasn't there anymore. And it wasn't like, oh yeah, he went out of business or he closed or anything like that. It was just he wasn't there. Like, he already kept odd hours. Like, he wasn't open every day. He was only open like 3 or 4 days out of the week. He was one of those guys that had a little compact black and white TV. And this was recent. This was like before the pandemic, just before the pandemic. He would sit there, eat potato chips, and watch this little compact TV while you wander through the bookstore, pulling stuff off the shelves and all that. He didn't have anything new though. I think he said he had stopped bringing in new comics because they wouldn't sell. So he had like a wall of comics from like 2015, 2016, just when the woke shit was starting. And he couldn't move any of that stuff. But he wouldn't mark down any of the costs either. So I just let it sit. But he had like tons of old comics I would flip through. $1 usually for floppies and stuff like that. Walk out of there with a ton of stuff, ton of books and things. It was a really fun place. And then he just vanished. I hope he's okay. He was an older man, so I hope he's all right. But I don't know where he went. Very, very tough. Unknown says, love DC female Penguin in Batman. She was awesome. So diabolical. Sons killing them. Killing one of them was crazy. Hope won't be her last appearance. Female Penguin. You must be reading like a whole lot of like uh otherworld stuff. Which I really don't get into the alternate universe and stuff like that usually. Usually that's not my bag, but it's okay. All right. Let me think of something else comic book related. Oh, Humanoids is going out of business. I mentioned that because some of my favorite comic book series comes from Humanoids. It's the Legend of the Scarlet Blades, and it's also shit. What's the other one called? Ilzuna or whatever. But oh, you're talking about the Penguin TV series? I didn't watch it. But those are really good. They're based off like a Japanese mythology and stuff like that. Kind of bloody and gory. Very fun series. One of them is called The Mask of Fudo, where there's a guy who gets a powerful mask. It's not like The Mask. Not that different, but it's not the same. And it's a really good series, and it was printed by Humanoids. You should be able to get it. Maybe the price will go up when Humanoids is gone. Who knows? But I bought the stuff already, and they're pretty good. All right, let's talk about manga. Spent 30 minutes on that. Let's talk about manga. What manga am I reading? Chainsaw Man, number 19. It is this irregular release schedule for manga has really killed the popularity of these series because both Chainsaw Man and Spy Family were both way more popular 2 years ago than they are now. And a lot of that has to do with, I think, the irregular release of the volumes. Same thing happened to My Hero Academia. The final volume of that is still not been sent to the United States. There is a volume that's sitting in my pull box at the comic book shop in Dearborn that I haven't read. Maybe that's the finale. But the series has been over for a long time and it still has not reached the finale in my hand in the United States yet. And I've been avoiding spoilers so I can read that. But Chainsaw Man is a series that kind of hit the skids around issue 12 or 13. This is volume 19. But I still like Chainsaw Man. I'm not saying it's bad. I got into Chainsaw Man because of the cool art and how relatable the character was. Chainsaw Man is still a mostly coming of age comic where you see that Denji has these very base human emotions and he was so deprived for most of his life. And he's still driven by those things. At first it was Maslow's hierarchy of need. He just wanted, food and friends, shelter and that kind of stuff. And that's how he got wrapped up in this whole thing. And then once he gets all of that, he starts working on, falling in love, wanting to have a girlfriend. And then, basic things like wanting to have, his first kiss and, go to second base with a girl for the first time. And now it's getting a little bit, it's getting a little bit racy where, in volume 19, the girl put her hands down his pants and it was jacking him off and she he came in her hand. I was taken aback by that because I didn't know it was going to happen. I was like, what the fuck is going on with this series? But the biggest issue with Chainsaw Man is that it seemed very focused for the first 12 volumes. And a lot of people jumped on because of the villain, who was Makima, who was controlling Denji, basically manipulating him. And everybody was really into that character. But she was killed off in like volume 12. And here it is, 19. they had to start up with basically a new character, um, who is Aisa, and she's now Denji's kind of girlfriend. She's a love interest for Denji. Let's put it like that. And they gave her a substantial amount of space in the story, and she still has a whole lot of space. But the story is just now really unfolding. That the Chainsaw Man has this ability that if he eats a thing, it's uh it's erased from history. So in Volume 19, they did a really cool thing where the humans are now realizing that they can manipulate Denji, because that's what they do. They manipulate Denji to eat things, and as a full-blooded Chainsaw Man. So not as just Denji with his regular clothes and a chainsaw sticking out of his head, but as a real chainsaw devil. You have to get him to that point, and they do something really terrible to get him to that point. I'm not going to spoil it, but once they get him to that point, they start feeding him things to erase from history, and then they would make him cough it back up to see whether it worked or not. So they they gave him the ear devil, and he ate the ear devil, and everybody's ears disappeared. And the humans, documented, you know, what what is it like to not have ears and all that kind of stuff. Then they made him cough the ear devil back up. And then they was like, the plan is to get him to eat the death devil so that nobody will ever have heard about death and nobody will ever die. So I was like, fuck, that's tremendous. That is tremendous. It took us too long to get here though. It took us a long time to get there, but that's fucking cool. But they're gonna try to get Denji to eat the death devil so that nobody will ever die. That's fucking cool. That's pretty sweet. I like that. The Generation Sharingan says, I'm not gonna lie, all I was hearing somewhat seeing was Chainsaw Man and Spy Family back in 2022, 2023. Yeah. And then there became like this really irregular, and I think it started because of COVID, but there became a real irregular release schedule for manga, and it never picked back up. Here it is 4 years after the pandemic, and it still hasn't picked back up. So it killed, like, Spy Family has been going on all this time, and it was one of the most popular manga in the world 3 or 4 years ago. Now, not so much. Chainsaw Man was right there too. One Punch Man was another one, you know? Um, and sometimes people do follow along online and read, and but a lot of people are still buying the physical copies of these things, and they take forever to come out. And that has slowed down a lot of the fandom, I think. Let's see. Timu says, why didn't the comic book writers put themselves on the covers? Missed opportunity. What if I forget who wrote them? Well, their names are on the covers. I mean, I don't want to see Jason Aaron's face if he started writing Batman. I want to see Batman. I don't care about Jason Aaron. The point is to sell the character. Do I play video games? No. He said, what if I enjoy the comic without thinking about who wrote them? That's really the best option if you're just trying to get into things, is to just don't worry about who writes it. Just worry about whether you enjoy the storyline and the characters and everything. If you enjoy all of that, if you enjoy the characters, usually, hopefully, you will continue to read even when that writer is not on the book anymore. That's not always the case, but sometimes it's the case. So, other manga that I'm reading, I just finished Fist of the North Star. This is the last volume, finally came out, volume 18. It finally came out. So I have 1 through 18. I definitely think Fist of the North Star as a series should have ended many volumes prior. It's one of those things that probably went too long, a lot like Dragon Ball, where they had a natural ending of the story that they went past. But I like Fist of the North Star. The art is absolutely fantastic. And Fist of the North Star is the kind of, for those of you who are unfamiliar, it is like martial arts movies set in a Mad Max timeline. It is fantastic. The main character is Kenshiro, and he is a he's not a stoic, like he is a real man in terms of he's big and strong and competent and confident. He's not cocky. He he's not easily moved, but he cries frequently in the series. Like he's moved by things, emotionally moved. And the series does a really good job in brotherhood and love and family. These things are bigger themes in the story than you would think if you just looked at the art. Because the art is all, exploding heads and guys being turned inside out and people being chopped up and everything. But pretty much every arc features a love story. A guy's in love with a girl and he can't have her because of X. He's got to go through this guy to get to this girl, or this girl is dead, and or whatever the case may be. And these are the primary motivations for a lot of the characters in the story. So for a very masculine story, there's a lot of really soft subtext there for emotional people, of which I tend to be one. You know, um, like I said, it's who the writer, because the writer and artist are two different people. He most definitely was inspired by Mad Max with the post-apocalyptic world, but it's clear he also was watching movies, Chinese kung fu movies. So a lot of it's fantastic. Fist of the North Star is a number one with a bullet. It's incredibly good. A number one, incredibly good stuff. I definitely think it went on too long though. Have I ever gotten into the Digimon manga? No. I played the video games when I was younger though. I played the Digimon games. They weren't as good as Pokemon to me. Even though I did like the Digimon games. They were easier to play than Pokemon. Um, Another manga series I'm reading is Ichi the Killer. There's a movie about this. I saw the movie. I had already ordered the book. Hadn't come yet. I got antsy. I watched the movie. But the book is a lot more graphic. Let's put it like that. The movie is not bad, but the book is nuts. So right now, they're Seven Seas are reprinting the omnibus version of Ichi the Killer. Essentially, it is about a very docile, kind of scary guy named Ichi who is set up to kill people, specifically bad people. But the weird thing is, he kind of gets off on people being hurt. So he has a fetish about people being beat up and killed and all that kind of stuff. And it gets really gross. It was like him having a crush on a stripper, and then he was going to kill her boyfriend for her, but then he was peeping in the room watching her get raped, and then he masturbated. And it was just gross shit. Just really gross. The second volume is coming this week actually, but I won't get it for another 2 weeks maybe. But it's a good series. You know, the art is great, the writing is pretty solid. You know, but you got to get past like the kink stuff that's in there, which is unfortunate. But that's kind of how manga is. A lot of manga is kink shit. You know, it's unfortunate, but the Japanese are not shy about sexuality and stuff. Like Chainsaw Man is a series for teenage boys, and we watched the main character get jacked off in the book. Like that was weird. Like it was very weird because I'm thinking Chainsaw Man has um, the same target audience as My Hero Academia, which is extremely vanilla. Like My Hero Academia doesn't even have kissing in it. Like there is. But then again, you're like, okay, maybe My Hero Academia could be aimed at even younger people because Chainsaw Man is definitely, because of the violence and everything, maybe it's for older teenagers. It's definitely for older teenagers if they're beating off the main character in there. But you end up with weird stuff when you pick up manga. Like I picked up this Succubus and Hitman series. I like this series. It's like half hentai though, and I had no idea. I'm still not gonna stop reading it, but it's like half hentai. So I was like, okay, whatever. I got into the story now, so now when they're having sex and stuff, I'm like, oh, okay. Seems kind of gratuitous, but let's go for it. And like there were rape scenes in the early part of the book. I'm in volume 9 now, but this is certainly not for children. It's a series about a guy who's on a revenge story. He was reincarnated in a new body. He got a demon sidekick and all that kind of stuff. So it's a decent series. It's good, um, but it's definitely got the the writers barely described kink in it. Also, there's another one. It's called the actual title is like chained slave, but they got chained soldier in English, as a way to mute the word slave. But he is a slave. It's a world where the girls have superpowers because they eat it's like a special forbidden fruit, and if the girls eat it, they get superpowers or whatever. So there's like demons and stuff, and the girls are fighting them. And then there's a boy whose ability is he can be turned into a slave for the girls, but they have to give him some kind of reward. And usually, because he's a young boy, not too young, he's not like underage. Actually, he might be younger. He might be like a teenager, like a 16, 17. But a lot of the stuff is kind of sexual. It's not super sexual where like he's literally screwing these girls, but stuff like them bathing him, them kissing on him, rubbing on him, him seeing their panties or him touching them topless and stuff like that as a way of getting a reward for a job well done. But it's kind of in a way a harem, but it's one of those series where the boy he's not like super awkward and scared of girls, but it's not a thing that he's actually out to do, you know. So it's kind of one of those things where he's kind of like, what, but not too gross. But it's a fun series. I like the chained slave. I'm sorry, the chained soldier. Because I get into these books mostly because of the cool art. And if I flip through a book, especially if I haven't heard of it before, I'll look at the art. And if the art is intriguing, if I see like big monsters or something like that, I'll get into it. And then I'll get tricked. And then there'll be like porn and shit in it. But that's that's dealing with manga, man. I'm not surprised at all. Um, Timu says Japan is sexually degenerate and is dying out. The West got sexually degenerate and is dying out. Yeah, that says a lot, right? A lot of that is because people are thinking about their base desires and not much else. Again, it's all kink shit. It's not like, hey, I got a wife and me and my wife are gonna have sex in this comic book. It's all kink degenerate shit. Multiple different girlfriends, having sex with demons, um, getting off because you watched a porn star get raped, or I'm sorry, a stripper get raped. Just really gross, bizarre stuff. It's not like sexy, you know. It's not even romantic all the time. Some of it's just straight up gross. I've also been reading Kagurabachi. I got volume 4. I think volume 5 is sitting in the box at in Dearborn. It's about a young man going around collecting his father's magic swords. Um, it's a good series, not the best, but it's not the worst either. It's very serviceable, readable, like it. Um, Also reading, I got City Hunter. I didn't know that City Hunter was a comic. It was a manga. I was familiar with the Jackie Chan movies, but I still got City Hunter. It's still in the plastic because it's one of the things at the bottom of the box that I didn't get to yet. Um, right. I'm also by the same artist reading Cat's Eye, which is even better. Like Cat's Eye is very good. It's this story about these three girls who are thieves, and matters are complicated when one of the girls, her boyfriend is a police officer, and they have this sort of Lupin the Third detective situation where she keeps escaping him. He doesn't know she's the thief, even though he's just very incompetent because the name of the thief is Cat's Eye, and the name of the restaurant where his girlfriend works is called the Cat's Eye Cafe. He's just really ridiculous. But it's a good series with great characters, and they find ways to complicate matters to create drama, and I like that. It's very simple to impress me with stories. Gunsmith Cats is another one I've been reading. Another great series. I think it's 3 volumes in the original series. I got the first two. Still waiting on the third one to come out. They're being reprinted by Dark Horse. It's a story about Riley Vincent, who is apparently an Indian. We find that out in the second volume. Is that or the second book, which is like I don't know how many, fifth volume maybe, that the character's supposed to be Indian. But she's a bounty hunter and a mercenary, and she basically goes around handling like these low level crimes and bringing people to justice. It's very fun, but also because it's Japan, it's degenerate. She's got this young partner who apparently used to be a prostitute, and apparently she was an underage prostitute at that. And I was like, man, that's very that's, that's so weird. But again, I like crime stories. I like very grounded. You know, it reminds me a lot of like Steve McQueen movies, where like Bullet or something like that. With like fast cars and guns, and the villains are super evil and drug dealers and sex traffickers and all that kind of stuff. So I got into it. I'm not going to stop just because. I mean, I think they aged the character up later on, so it's not so gross. But yeah, unfortunately, Japan is Japan, and they're doing Japanese things. And you can't get away from it, especially when you've already bought the book. It's like, what am I going to do? Throw it away? Burn it? I've already bought it. This goddamn thing was $30, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it was $30. Fuck it. I just have to bite the bullet. Blame Japan. This is what they do. What is your least favorite season of King of the Hill and favorite season? You know what? I cannot do that because I have never. I can't break down the King of the Hill seasons. Um, I can't do that. I think the last season was pretty weak. Not the most recent one, but the one before that was pretty weak. But I don't know. Like I watch King of the Hill mostly in reruns, so a lot of it has been episode here, episode there, and I don't know what season those episodes were from. But I've seen every episode of King of the Hill. I've just seen them out of order. I never sat down and watched the entire series in order, which I need to do one day. Speaking of which, I watched all the Powerpuff Girls in order, and then I got to 2016, and I quit halfway through the first episode. It was that bad. It was that bad. My love for Powerpuff Girls was beaten out of me in 8 minutes. That episode was 11 minutes. About 8 minutes in, I didn't want to watch another Powerpuff Girls related franchise, period, anymore. So, how about that? It's weird how that happens, right? But since I guess what it's got to be something else for me to talk about. Oh yeah, Trigun. That's complete. I got all 5 books of that now, which is great. It wasn't near. I think Trigun should. I like the manga, but the last several volumes of the manga was very confusing, extremely confusing. I wasn't really sure what the purpose was anymore. I like the anime version of the series better. Same thing. I finished Hellsing as well. That was pretty good too. It's kind of similar to the OVAs I've watched. Um, so that's pretty much it when it comes to manga. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm going to get Claymore and Naruto. I already put those things aside in my cart. I'm going to start reading Naruto probably this year, and I'm gonna give you guys an update as I read Naruto or Naruto, as some people are calling it. I also want to read Claymore because I heard good things about it, and I heard that it was not completely adapted, and it's not that long. It's like 25 volumes or something like that. So I'll get Claymore as well. I'll probably buy that and Naruto together. So probably like in backs of 4. Probably get 4, wait a couple of months, get 4 more, wait a couple of months, get 4 more. So this is as I'm trying to phase out buying new stuff because I'm definitely next year not even going to have a pull box. I'm probably going to pull my entire pull box from my Dearborn spot and try to use that whole year to build back up my bank account because it's looking very, very shaky right now. I'm not even going to hold you up. It's extremely shaky. You said that's Shayna Baszler, not Rudo. The nine-tailed fox. Huh. Okay, so yes. Now anime. Well, um, a lot of the anime that I was watching that have vanished. I haven't picked up anything new. At least I don't think so. I was still reading. I was still watching Dan Da Dan, and I like that series. I like Dan Da Dan. It's very good. I was watching Undead Unluck earlier. I'm not sure if I've seen this stuff already or not. This was also another series that was pretty popular because one of the main characters is a big-breasted short girl. But when I jumped back into this series, I didn't remember anything before it. So I was like, I don't know while I'm watching this. I was picking up pieces as I was watching it, like, okay, I remember this, and this, but nothing was really sticking. Same thing with One Punch Man. I started watching One Punch Man again. Um, Nothing's really sticking for me. But I remember when everybody liked One Punch Man. I'm not so sure anymore. Um, Chainsaw Man is on vacation, I think. My Hero Academia, I think that's still on vacation. They haven't done the last of Demon Hunter yet. They just put out a Demon Hunter movie, so that's not out yet. Same thing with Chainsaw Man. They just did a Chainsaw Man movie. The Reza arc of Chainsaw Man is when I started reading the manga, and I had to go back and buy the first volumes. So that's the version of Chainsaw Man about to turn into a movie. The bomb devil. Well, this is the bomb fiend maybe, but that's where they're gonna do a movie for that. So that'll be interesting. But other than that, I need anime to watch, and I've tried watching like a lot of American cartoons again, but only Powerpuff Girls really stuck because I enjoyed it so much. I ended up watching the entire run from '98 to whatever year it was taken off the air. Even though I think the earlier seasons were extremely good, it was okay near the end. But that 2016 was a disaster. It was a disaster. Oh man, I can't tell you how much I disliked it. Didn't like it at all, brother. Um, what else? Oh yeah, regular books that I've been reading. You want to spend a little bit of time talking about regular books that I've been picking up. Let's talk about some history books. For starters, I've been reading some biographies. I read This Side of Glory by David Hilliard, who was one of the leaders of the Black Panther Party. I've read A Taste of Power by Elaine Brown, who is also one of the leaders of the Black Panther Party. I read of Negroes and the Gun by Nicholas Johnson. Nicholas Johnson, I think, is a historian, but basically it tells the history of how Black people have used guns throughout history for self-defense during abolition, Reconstruction, of the Civil Rights era, and how that flipped near the end. And that was a nice twist, is that he flipped it at the end about how Black people became anti-gun. And and after Black people started becoming mayors and city councilmen, they started having these anti-gun campaigns. So I thought that was an incredibly smart and interesting twist, that after you spent all of these chapters talking about how Black people use guns to fight against the Fugitive Slave Act, and to fight it back against the Ku Klux Klan, and trying to prevent lynchings, and how the Deacons of Defense and the various NAACP and SNCC groups were able to use guns to protect people during the Civil Rights movement. He overshot the Black Power movement. Didn't talk too much about the Black Panthers or the Black Liberation Army, and how it went from self-defense to offense. He touched that, but then he moved on to anti-gun politicians in like DC and other places. So it's a very good book. I suggest it. I definitely suggest it if you don't know that stuff, because I knew a lot of that stuff. It was kind of boring because I was like, this is a retread, but it's not the writer's fault that I read a lot of stuff about this stuff before. You know, uh, I have I've read, what else? Benjamin Quarles. He wrote a book on John Brown. I read that. It's pretty good. Um, I can't find it. I must have put it on my shelf already, so I can't find it. I currently have another Benjamin Quarles, who was like a old historian. He's been dead since like the 90s, I think. He wrote a lot of books in like the 60s and stuff. Oh, The Negro and the Civil War. I haven't read it yet, but I got it sitting right here in front of me, which means I'm probably going to start it soon. I also have another history book. This one is a little out of left field, but it's called, where did I put it? Um, Nothing Like It in the World by Stephen Ambrose. It's about the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. For some reason, this fascinated me. And this was one of those books that I didn't buy it. I went to one of those book nooks and happened to see it and was like, what the fuck do I know about the railroad? Nothing. Do I want to know about the railroad? Kinda. Like it's an interesting subject. And when I flipped it open, I read, one of these sentences here, and I thought this was like a tremendous setup. And I happen to have the book in my hand. He says the United States was less than 100 years old when the Civil War was won, slavery abolished, and the first transcontinental railroad was built. I'm like, holy shit. He put that into perspective. I hadn't even thought about that. You talk to Black people about Black stuff, they make you think slavery ended yesterday. But no, it was within the first 100 years of the country's founding that we had gotten rid of slavery. And they started building a railroad, I believe, in, what year did he say? 1896? Is that's when they first started it? Let me see. No, it's they started building it in before the end of the Civil War. No, 1803 is when they built the Louisiana Purchase. 1803, Nevada Central Pacific. 1848, 1869, I think. Maybe I ought to read the book first. I'm gonna read the book first. I'm getting all this shit wrong because I'm skimming through it. But that's just through the introduction. I haven't really like cracked the book open yet. I have also Orlando Patterson's book is on Reconstruction. He's a historian of, I think, Jamaican extraction, which I know Tariq Nasheed and all those guys are going to be very upset. But he's not really I wouldn't say he's a conservative historian. because he still talks a whole lot about slavery and all that kind of stuff. But I bought the book because it was cheap, and I heard that Orlando Patterson was a good historian, so I'll probably read it. But it's taken me a while to finish it, which means I'm not that interested in it. I have The Shadow of the Panther, which is a book about Huey Newton and the Black Panther Party by Hugh Pearson. I haven't read it yet. It's been sitting on my desk. I have Forever Free by Eric Foner sitting on my desk. Kill 'Em and Leave by James McBride. This is a book about, I think it's a music history book. Yeah, it's about James Brown and soul music. I like to read about music sometimes because I also have The Big Payback by Dan Charnas. And Dan Charnas was the guy who wrote the book on Jay Dilla, but he wrote a history book on hip hop. It's a gigantic book, which is why I've had it for a while and I haven't read it yet. But it's just sitting there on my desk. I also have The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. I want to read that too. Uh, I've tried to tackle that book twice, but I've always been distracted by other things. Eventually, eventually, I'm going to read that book. Eventually, so I'm gonna leave it there until I read it. But I always have books. Like usually, I'll have a book, and then I'll order a book, and I'll get more into that book because I got two books sitting. For starters, I got 50 books sitting in my wish list on Amazon. And I'm stopping myself from actually spending money on any of these things. But the next books I'm going to order are going to be From the Ghetto to the Plantation, or From the Plantation to the Ghetto, which is a book that was written in like the 70s. It's like a history of black history from slavery to civil rights. And I want to read that because I heard it was a classic and it was a really good book. So I'm gonna read that, even though it's from the 70s. And the second book I got that's indirectly in my shopping cart is The Shakurs, An American Family. It's a book about the Shakur family, Matulu, Zayd, Tupac, Afeni, Asada, and all of them. Uh, I was going to do a talk about Tupac, but I want to read that book first. I want to read that book first, and then I'm going to read Eric Dyson's book again on Tupac. I have that one on my shelf. So I'll probably do a Tupac thing next year because that'll give me some time to get the book, read it, then read Michael Eric Dyson's book again. I don't want to read a ton of books on Tupac though, because a lot of Tupac material tends to be pro Tupac and not either neutral or anti. Like I need like I've read enough Tupac propaganda. Let's put it like that. That's kind of how I feel. Like if I'm interested in a subject, I want to know like what some of the arguments and things against it are too. You know, and Tupac is one of those things that it's very hard to find people who are saying negative things about him. It's a lot like Martin Luther King. Like everybody who's putting in all this effort to quote unquote tell the truth about Martin Luther King, that's hard work. You putting in a lot of footwork to find criticisms of Martin Luther King because he's treated like Jesus by so many people. But that's what makes it so rewarding in the end, I guess, is because you actually did the legwork to figure it out. But I would like to do the same thing with Tupac. You know, um, I may have to listen to his albums again, the bust down lyrics and stuff like that. But we'll get around to it when we get around to it, if I get around to it. But I will be reading that book on his family. We'll be reading that. Whether I talk about it on the channel or not, we'll see. Generation Sharingan says there's a whole lot of people that are slandering Tupac, especially in 2025. Not to the degree that he deserves it. There's people who are like calling him a faggot and stuff like that, and people were saying he wasn't a real gangster and all that, but that's not enough. Like to me, that's like base level stuff. You know, you talking about when he was 17 and how he was lisping and stuff we saw that. Everybody talks about that. We need like a full breakdown of like what his family believed and all. Like when I read Michael Eric Dyson's book on Tupac, and I read that people believed that he had been raped in prison. I was like, what? Nobody's talking about this anywhere ever. What the hell? And they were like, oh, he was an alcoholic. I'm like, what? Tupac? But it all starts to add up later when you really started reading it. And but I really don't know enough about his mama. And that's really kind of, I'm like, okay, I need to learn about his mama. And of course I've learned about his mama through reading other books, books about the Panther 21, not books about them, but them being mentioned in other books, and some of their hijinks. Like, yeah, man, we need a full Tupac examination, starting with Afeni and his birth father, who is still alive, by the way. So there needs to be like a full examination of that whole thing, because I find it very. I don't want to get into this again. It's kind of politicky, and I don't want to talk about that. But it's very suspicious to me that Afeni Shakur has such powerful friends that got her out of prison, people who put up money to get the Panther 21 out of prison, all the Leonard Bernsteins and the high society types of New York. She was a drug addict, had never, to my knowledge, never did anything of note, and yet was able to move her son back and forth across the country, and give them a fairly decent education. And it's also very odd to me that Tupac, he's a different person every time you read something about him. There's been magazines and stuff that have talked about how soft he was, and how he would read Romeo and Juliet and cry, and how he was hugged up with his white manager, his white female manager or whatever he had. It apparently she was one of his lovers or something like that, and she was talking about how you know um, how he put on this tough armor. I'm like, Tupac was only 25 or something like that, so I'm not surprised. But of they keep writing these books about him, and there's another guy who just wrote a book about, a white guy who wrote a book about Tupac that's going to be released recently, imminently. It might even be out now, actually, and it's very glowing about Tupac as like a prophet. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know, brother. And I don't want to just tear the guy down, and it's not necessary. I just want to know what the truth is. What's underneath all of this. Because Tupac to me was like a mediocre artist with a good work rate, a good work ethic, who pumped out a whole lot of material. Most of it doesn't stand out, but it's treated like it's 100% all classics. And the fact that he is not criticized at all by the mainstream. He's almost 100% universally loved. They're having college level classes started with Tupac. I'm like, wait a minute. All of this feels very industry plant-y. You know, it all feels like he was put in that position. And I just want to make sure that that's not the case. And I'm definitely going to look into it, because I'm like, everything is adding up to this guy being some kind of industry plant. Because what's the likelihood that during the Public Enemy era, the son of a Black Panther pops up, and his first album is not even really successful, and the second one was, but not to the degree that it would become later. But then he goes to prison. He comes out. He's a super thug after doing movies and stuff, and that becomes his character and his personality and everything, and that takes over the world at that point. And he starts being pushed by everybody from academics to politicians. And I'm like, everybody loves this guy? Wait a second. I've never seen anything like this before, especially for a rapper. So I'm very suspicious about this. So let's just be sure. Let's just be sure he's not an industry plant, because something telling me he might be. He might have been. The Generation Shotgun said there's no such thing as an industry plant. There's only in corporate puppets. That's not true. That's not true. It's not true. Industry plants are people who you don't really see the work that they put in. They seemingly came out of nowhere and was successful. Now that's not entirely true of Tupac. Like we saw, he was a background dancer for oh shit, Digital Underground. You know, his first album came out. It wasn't, you know, it was okay, but it wasn't. It didn't really hit, even though he had like some successful singles like Brenda's Got a Baby. But it felt to me like he went from being a conscious, almost Talib Kweli kind of rapper to being something completely different just a few years later. And that seemed very suspicious to me, like he was put in that position. And I'm very suspicious of that. Very, very suspicious. Oh, so you want someone who criticizes Tupac's borderline socialist, communist, Panther beliefs? Yes, but nobody actually talks about those things. Like nobody talks about his upbringing. Like they talk about, of course, how tough it was because they'll blame institutional racism and COINTELPRO, whatever the fuck. Like, no, his mom was a drug addict and his stepdaddy was a drug addict. Kind of explains why his the hardships that he had when he was young. But nobody criticizes the beliefs of like the Shakur family. Nobody talks about what his stepfather went to prison for, which is like I think an armored truck robbery. Like there's a lot of stuff there that's meat on the bones, like the things that they believed, the things that they were trying to do. They talk about Afeni like she was a deity. Tupac was born in prison. Like there was a reason why Tupac was born in prison. What the fuck were you doing? What were you doing? you know? And then you indoctrinated this guy. And he also, what really got me suspicious about Tupac, and this is just legit, when I found out that Tupac wasn't even his name, that really threw me for a loop. Like when I found that out, I became anti-Tupac. Because as I said before in that other video, I am extremely suspicious of people who change their name. Now, it probably wasn't his choice. It was probably his family that did that, but when people change identities like that, it almost always goes to they were one person and now they're somebody completely different. So who were you before you were Tupac Shakur? When you were was it Lassane Parish Crooks? Like who was that guy? You know, who were you when you were that guy? And that's kind of what I'm interested in because I think there's a dichotomy between the two people, and I'm interested in seeing how that works. And plus, I don't know what Afeni's real name is because I'm pretty sure it's not Afeni Shakur, right? I never looked it up. I've never looked up what her real name was. I wasn't that interested, but now I am. And that was a few years ago when I became very, very interested in Tupac. You said most black people are borderline socialists. That's true. It's not even borderline. It is it's they are, and they're openly to socialist. The Generation Sharingan says you got to read up his stories with his actual Bay Area people, specifically Money B of Digital Underground. I also need to read up on the people who knew him in Baltimore, because those are the people who he grew up with when he was a teenager, and who he went to that that art school with, that theater school. Like when he was like when that video of him and Will Smith's wife came out and they were dancing together and everything. I looked at that and was like, what the fuck? Like it kept being like new things. Like I was never like obsessed with Tupac. So whenever I saw something that was odd, I was like, what? Like when I first found out about the name change, I was like, what? That's not even his name. And then later on, I was like, okay, whatever. I was suspicious, but like, never mind. And then I saw the video of him talking about how all women are queens, and he had that list, but he was doing that thing with his wrist, and I was like, huh? Okay, that matches the nose ring though. Like the forward front tie up to the t-shirt and the nose ring. I could see how you can get that from, high top Tupac with the wrist thing he's doing. I see how you can get those two things together. That's a little weird. He's got some sugar in his tank. And then I hear about him getting raped in jail. I'm like, wait a second. That's odd. I'm hearing about him being an alcoholic. I'm like, what? Like, wait a second. Where the fuck did this guy come from? And then I read in a completely different thing that his mother was a Black Panther. Like, okay, so that part was true. But she was arrested along with a bunch of other people for trying to bomb a department store. Huh? Nobody ever told me about that. And they were robbing armored trucks. Nobody ever told me about that. And that's why Tupac was, born, kind of low class, and they were drug addicts and everything. I'm like, okay, well, kind of putting all the pieces together, and every little while, I think about it. Like, they really took this theater kid and made him the face of hip hop. Like, he was on the cover of every magazine, Vibe, Ebony, all this shit. He was the face of the industry right before he died, and then they killed him. I say they, but he was killed by Crips in 1996. Like, I was never obsessed with his death. His death made 100% sense to me. I knew gangbangers. You don't disrespect these guys and then go back to sleep, right? You just don't go chill. Like, once I saw that, oh, there's video of him jumping the guy just spinning the block. Like, this is not okay. That's nigga shit. I mean, I'm not even too concerned about that. Everybody's obsessed with with the FBI trying to kill him and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, he's probably on a watch list, but that's probably because of who his parents were, and he's arguing with like politicians and stuff. Like, he's calling like C. Dolores Tucker a bitch. She's in Congress. Like, you don't get to call a congressman a bitch and all that kind of stuff. And I think he wrote that song "Wonder Why They Call You Bitch." I think that was about C. Dolores Tucker, right? If I remember correctly, I might be wrong. I'm like, you can't call a congressman a bitch and all this kind of stuff while your parents were terrorist Black Panthers, and then you're not on the list. Of course, they're watching you. And no, I don't think the feds or anybody killed him. I believe the Crips fucking killed him because he was hanging out with Bloods and they jumped the guy in a casino. This shit is not that hard to figure out. He's not Martin Luther King. Okay? Martin Luther King, okay, it might be a conspiracy. Malcolm X might be a conspiracy. Tupac, no, it's not a conspiracy at all. The Generate Sharingan says, from what I've heard from the actual Baltimore people, Park was the kid that grew up poor and yet went to a school of arts. If you don't know about that school, pretty much everyone can attend. Was it a public school? They say Tupac was a revolutionist. Well, I'm pretty sure he was. He grew up in a household with people who were talking about the revolution all the time. Like, that's not even in question. I don't think that part of his background is even in question, nor is it fake. I believe that I don't think it's a positive thing, but it's not fake. It's not a lie. You know, I've read more than enough about. I shouldn't say more than enough because I don't know their real names, but I've read quite a few books that feature his stepfather and his mother and their antics and things that they may have believed. So I'm not surprised by any of that. Like, his lineage in terms of being born to a group of Black Panthers, I am not surprised about that at all. Like, that is factual information. How he got from there to being the biggest rapper on earth is what it makes me suspicious, because now I'm saying to myself, how did that happen? Like, what's the likelihood that his family members went from hanging out with rich Jews in New York who ended up scratching up the bail money for his mom while she might have been pregnant with him during this whole shabazzle. And we go from there to him being the biggest rapper on earth. It seems like he might have had an in already. Like, there might have already been a connection there that was made to get him to that point. But of course, I can't prove it. That's a conspiracy theory for you right there, brother. To be fair, Mongo, the guy was a contradictive person, and even admits to that he's a danger to himself. Well, yeah, he's an alcoholic, and Will Smith's wife was honest about that. She knew he was an alcoholic. So again, Tupac only lived to be like 24 or 25, so it's not like he lived a whole full life. But I became very suspicious of people that used to be on TV all the time, people who are presented to us as heroes. After I found out that Nelson Mandela was also a terrorist and a communist, and I was like, holy shit, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela. When I was a kid, I used to hear about Nelson Mandela. You think he was Jesus, you know? And it's like, no, Nelson Mandela, he spent 20 years in prison, not because he was black, because he was a communist, terrorist. And I was like, holy shit. And then, so I'm suspicious of just anybody that I see Hollywood and the media put on a pedestal. I get instantly suspicious of them, especially if I find out the name that I know them as is not their real name. I really get suspicious. And that really is what cracked the code with Martin Luther King with me. Like when it came to Martin Luther King, I was still kind of defending him. And then I was like, Michael King. Why did they change his name? Again, the name changing stuff is like instantly. Like as soon as I hear that you changed your name, I'm like, why? You know, like what is you what is the difference between that name and this one? What's the reason? You know, and it's usually a political reason behind it. So it's usually a show that something's about to happen. There's been a change in your persona, a change in your vision, a change in your life. Now you're a different person. We need to talk about that. Degenerate Sharingan says, well, I'll ask this question though. From what I was told and even what noticed, Park only became beloved by his later years, probably the last 8 months. I think that would be correct. I think the last few months. But that also is a part of the issue with me is I lived through Tupac's life, right? I was born in 1984. Tupac was kind of the biggest rapper in the world between 95 and 96. I would have been 11 or 12 years old. My uncle was listening to Snoop Dogg and all that stuff. He had he was like in the streets and everything. He didn't have any Tupac album before Me Against the World. It's like Tupac didn't exist before Me Against the World, but he had two albums before that. You know what I'm saying? So then when he died in '96, all of a sudden Tupac is the greatest rapper that ever lived, and I'm like, wait a second, what do you mean? And then there's all these fake Tupac tapes, all these bootlegs that are coming out, and who is leaking all these bootlegs? Where are all these bootlegs coming from? All these bootleg remixes and shit. I'm like, where's all this stuff coming from? Again, I was a young man when this happened. I was 13, 14. Tupac is dead now, but there's a new Tupac song every day. Like how? Like this is all very suspicious to me. And then all these conspiracy theories about him being alive in Cuba. Why would he be in Cuba? Of course, it makes sense when you think about it later that all the Black Panthers run to Cuba when they get in trouble. I'm like, oh, so that's why they say he's alive in Cuba. He's not alive, by the way. He's dead. But you know, um, and then over the years, they push him as this sort of prophet that oh yeah, this wouldn't have happened if Tupac was alive. And Tupac saw this way back in 1991 or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay. But the more and more he was pushed by the mainstream, the more and more suspicious I got. But of course, when I became like in my early 20s, I stopped caring about that kind of shit. But when I picked up that Michael Larry Dyson book on Tupac, which I got out of a clothing store, I didn't even get it out of a bookstore. I was in like City Trends or something like that, buying a shirt for like a job interview, and I just happened to see it on the shelf because they used to sell books in there, and I was like, huh, Tupac, Michael Larry Dyson. Boop, picked it up because I loved Michael Larry Dyson at the time. Picked it up, I didn't get that job anyway. It doesn't matter. Read the book, shocked to learn that his name wasn't his real name. He was an alcoholic. They was talking about him being a drug addict, weed, of course. Him possibly being raped in prison. All this other really fucked up stuff that nobody talks about. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. And I hadn't seen any of the videos because I never watched any Tupac documentaries or anything like that. I didn't care enough. But over time, once I started questioning a bunch of other people like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, I was like, why can't I question him too? And that's kind of where I sit now. It's like, we should be questioning Tupac too. We should be questioning everybody from Nelson Mandela to Louis Farrakhan. There's some weird shit going on with him too. Possibly being one of the guys who killed Malcolm X, or at least pushed the button on Malcolm X. It has been confirmed again for people that Al Sharpton was a Fed, which I knew 15 years ago. I knew about this. The guy who created Kwanzaa was a fucking Fed. I knew about that 20 years ago. And people are just not finding out about this stuff. I'm like, yeah, we need to talk about it. Every single person. Because when I started looking up Stokely Carmichael, find out he was a fucking communist. Ran to was it Algeria, where he blamed the United States for him having cancer. I'm like, what the fuck? W.E.B. Du Bois, same thing. I'm just like, oh my god, all of these people are plants. These are not serious people, and a lot of it started when I stopped listening to Michael Eric Dyson, when he got busted on CNN, and I will tell this story until the day I die, until I find the clip. When he was sitting with his brother, who was in prison, and this white, I believe it was a white man, asked Michael Eric Dyson, why are you a professor? And he is in prison, I think it was for life. You grew up in the same household with the same opportunities. Because the white man was trying to get him to recognize that it wasn't racism that holds black people back, it's their choices. When Michael Eric Dyson looked at that man and said, well, my skin is lighter than his, I was like, that's quite frankly the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard a somewhat intelligent person say. That exposed not just Michael Eric Dyson, but so many other people to me. It was eye-opening. I started questioning everybody after that. Started asking 100 questions after that. I'm actually going to put up a video tomorrow about Maven. I already recorded it. People only care when you die. Yeah, that's true. A lot of people give you flowers when you die, but it's more than that. It's more than that, in my opinion. When it comes to Tupac, it's more than just he died. When it comes to like Big L, a lot of that was because he died. But Tupac, man, they put that dude on the moon. They about ready to name streets after Tupac. I'm like, you can't be serious. There's more to it than that. What is your opinion on colorism, texturalism, and futurism? Well, I don't know what texturism is. Colorism is garbage though. And it's not even if you want to say colorism is a real thing, it's only true for the Sol Rucas of the world, who got black parents, 2 black parents, but somehow she looks white. It only really affects her. If you have brown skin in any sort of condition, it's not like all of a sudden you get a free pass to be black in America. That was the stupidest shit I ever heard. And this is how people treat, like, there were stories about people passing for white. Michael Eric Dyson is not one of those people. So he can't be like, well, colorism. Oh, clearly. Are you kidding me? Your brother's just a couple of shades darker than you are. This is the dumbest fucking thing in the world. If it was Mariah Carey, then I would say, eh, maybe. You know, like maybe she can get away with being white. But this Michael Eric Dyson thing, no, and it didn't make sense because I just happened to be in college and we was thinking about this stuff. Like, okay, take into account different educational opportunities, different housing opportunities, etc. What happens when those things are the same, right? If I was smart, really, like if I was really smart, I'd have looked at me and my own brothers. But it took for me to look at a guy who I thought was smart and for him to say something stupid and for me to catch it and be like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. You know, like you guys are born in the same house. You're not that far apart in age. It's not like you're 25 and you know your brother was 25 and you were 12 or something like that. I don't think that was the case. Like they grew up fairly close to each other in every respect. And because one person made bad decisions, he ended up in prison. And because you made better decisions, you ended up in college and being a professor. That should break the conversation, but it doesn't. It never does. And then you find out that these, you know, intellectuals, quote unquote, they keep having that same trap. They can never blame a person's behavior for how their life turned out. And you realize that the only time they do blame people's behaviors is when they look at something that affects another minority group. For instance, um, if a man attacks a woman, it's not racism that did it because if they're if both of them are black, it's not racism. Then it's got to be toxic masculinity. It's still not about that person. It's always about some social power made him do it. And if they were smart, it'd be almost biblical that it's the devil working through you, and that's why I kind of reject that whole thing. Like it's not really the devil that makes people do sinful shit. People are naturally sinful, you know, like there's sin in your heart all the time. You always want to do the wrong thing. The wrong thing feels good. The wrong thing might be the first fucking thing that comes to your mind. That's because you're a human being. And there's no doubt about it that there is definitely demonic, you know, forces that might push people to do the more extreme things. But, you know, people who are lying, people who are constantly cheating and trying to cut corners, a lot of that's just human beings doing human being shit. And when you blame people, you don't call people out for that, you just reinforce it. You basically put it on the devil, you put it on toxic masculinity, you put it on racism. All these are excuses. That's just an excuse. You're doing it. You're the person engaging in the behavior. So you're the person we need to chastise. We need to chastise you, not toxic masculinity. You can't chastise Satan anyway. He's not going to listen to you. So ultimately, the only thing you can do is is get right to the person. That's kind of where I started building my worldview. Michael Eric Dyson hates his light skin privilege. An old preacher of mine used to say, "Why do people sin? Sinning is fun." That's right. Some of the most fun and enjoyable things are things you're not supposed to be doing, and that's just real. You know, that's just reality. Some things that you're not supposed to do are the most fun and enjoyable things. And the thing is, that's the beauty about the Bible is it knows that you want to do those things, and it tells you to resist them. And you know, but the flesh is weak, and so is the mind. So you're supposed to repent. That doesn't mean just do shit and then be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Jesus." But I'm just saying, like, you're supposed to resist those things. And sometimes you're not going to be as strong as other times. You know, if you're too disciplined, you torture yourself. You know, but if you're too loose, you torture yourself. You get trapped in your own vices. Like these guys who are making millions of dollars, but they end up being degenerate gamblers. So now the NBA is breathing down their neck, and the FBI is bringing down their neck about gambling. It's like they gave you all of this money already, $26 million that one basketball player is going to make, and he still wants to gamble. He try to make more. That's sin. That's not logic. There's no reason he would do that. It's just sin. It's in his heart to want. He's greedy. It's that simple. He's just greedy. But it's okay because the Lord knows that you are weak. You have to stop sinning, repent, and try to sin no more. The problem that we have is people are not taught that they were wrong. They're taught that it was somebody else's fault. And that's one of the first things I saw is, oh, these ball players, they wouldn't be in this situation if it wasn't for those mob guys. Like, yes, they would. Yes, they would. They ended up with the mob guys because they were already doing this shit. You don't get connected with the mob and start doing all this stuff if you aren't already a degenerate fucking gambler. That's how they found out about you, because you was already a goddamn gambler. Otherwise, like, it wouldn't even happen that way. But that's how it is. Sinning is indeed fun. I think people would lie to you and say that it's not, but it is. Sex outside of marriage, getting drunk, getting high. These things are very enjoyable. People wouldn't do them if they didn't. If they were not enjoyable, people wouldn't do it. People don't do, things that they don't like recreationally. People do things that they like recreationally. And those things come back to bite them in the end. There's always a connection. There's always a connection. And that's when you realize that the world is set up that way. For every sin that you could possibly engage in, there's a passive backlash and an active backlash. So like if you engage in the sin of lust, you're constantly chasing girls, always trying to have sex with women. There's passive backlash, such as you have a bunch of babies by different women. It doesn't actually hurt you physically, hurts you financially. It may hurt you in the long run, as your children might not respect you, might not, love you the same if you've been a father underneath the same roof. But then there's the active problem with this STDs. You run into somebody's angry boyfriend and he cracks your fucking head open. Like, those are what could happen if you continue to chase tail and don't curb your own appetite for sex. You get jammed up in some other ways, some ways that actually hurt you. And some people, they skirt with the passive, something that doesn't physically hurt them. But then that happens for so long. For instance, if you're a glutton for alcohol or even food, I have to deal with this myself. I'm pull a Jason Whitlock. It might not hurt you today, but when you get hit with that diabetes diagnosis, you have a heart attack or a stroke, you get high blood pressure. Those are things that it ain't gonna get you today. But if you keep doing it, it gets you 10 years from now, 15 years from now. And I think about that stuff every day. And I still struggle with it, still have a problem with it. But that's why I don't buy potato chips and stuff like that. 'Cause I don't want to gorge on it. I know if it's around, I'm going to eat it. Like, I have a bad habit of, if I see chips, I reach for them. So I don't buy them. Right. So, unfortunately, other people do. Like, my brother went and bought, like, this mixed candy set with, like, Kit Kats and Snickers and shit in it. I was like, you know what, dog? Chocolate is a weakness. I went in there and poked out like 3 or 4 of them shits. I ate 1 or 2, then I hit the exercise bike, and then I put the rest of them away, and I ate like 2 the next day. But I could do this in moderation. But there was a time when I would have been like halfway deep in the bag, man. You got to learn how to moderate things so that you can mitigate some of those long term effects of the sin that's in your heart. You know, people don't need to work on that. I need to work on it. Everybody does. It's the same thing with envy, jealousy. You know, jealousy is one of the things that really only hurts you, but it will lead you to hurt somebody else. And I've seen people get that way too. You get real envious, and you make you miserable. And this is one of the things that I feel like, to go back to the black stuff. I think a lot of black people are envious of like immigrants and white people and stuff like that. That's why they're so miserable, you know, and it leads them to saying absolutely ridiculous things and doing ridiculous things. But it blows up in your face over time because you start having pride, which is also a sin, and you're not really, and again, might not hurt you, but overall, over time, though, it makes you miserable, you know? And that misery carries with you and it carries into your attitude and how you approach subjects. And a lot of it is a self-defeating prophecy because you have that envy in your heart. It leads you to destruct. It leads you to be destructive. Like communism is in it's kind of a religion based on envy. You have more than I have. That's not fair. I can't make myself as good as you, but I can pull you down. Well, if I pull enough of you down, I pull the whole fucking society down, right? So now we're all poor. Now there's bread lines and people are starving in the street. People are eating dogs. So you read like what happened in Russia and how these guys were starving to death. And then the same thing happened in China. It's like, why does it keep happening? Because this is when you weaponize the evil in your heart. It feels good to go out there and say, we're going to tax the rich and there should be no billionaires. And then you get the power to do it. And you do it. And now you find yourself torturing not just Elon Musk and Bill Gates, but guys who just have a better job than you have. Guys, you're in a apartment. This guy's in a one family joint with a nice lawn. You want to see him torn down too. Because once that runaway envy, that runaway jealousy gets into your system, it can motivate you because that's the weird thing because sin can motivate you. That's the scary thing. Sin is a motivator. A lot of people better themselves because they're chasing tail. They go in the gym, they stay in the gym, they go get all the nice colognes, they dress well, get haircuts, all this kind of stuff because they want to chase girls. And then that helps them build their confidence. But then they have no control over it and they end up in the passive and then active issues of harming themselves. When you're jealous, sometimes you can be motivated. You can work harder and say, I need to, my neighbor got this nice car. I need to work a little bit harder so I can get the same car so he won't be stunting on me. Maybe. But if it don't work, then you want to tear him down. That's how things. That's the sad thing about life. People don't think about those sorts of things, and I do because I sit back and I've engaged with this stuff. We all have the same sins. We just have it in in different uh in different volumes. I've been jealous of my friends. They got better looking girlfriends, or they got a nice car, or they got this and this. But I never let it get to the point where I want to tear my friend down. And that's when I realized that there are people who get that far. There are people who don't want to see their friends succeed. Yeah, You get that lust demon in you, you know? It motivates you to get in better shape, keep your line up tight, brush your teeth, wash your ass, actually talk to that girl behind the counter that you wanted to talk to, actually get her phone number, play the game right, go over to her crib, be nice, be gentle, get her to be your girlfriend, lay the pipe. Yeah, yeah, I got it. But if you don't stop, next thing you know, you're looking at the other girl, her roommate, or something like that, and you're in the exact same position. And then you end up ruining not only that relationship, but a future one because you can't control yourself. There's all sorts of things that can, and it's fucked up, but people don't tell the truth. And I think that's the one thing about Christians that is that they know sin exists, but they don't know that sin is motivating. I don't think I've ever heard a preacher even say that. Sin can motivate you. You could be so engrossed in something that is not good for you that it pushes you to become a better version of yourself, and you start thinking it's a good thing. And you don't even notice that it's not a good thing until it backfires on you. Pimps are another is a good example of the lust demon. There are guys who are really good with women. And they manipulate women so well that they not only can get sex out of them, they can get money out of them. They can, get the keys to her car, keys to her apartment. But then his ego starts getting into it and he might beat her up. Like there's all sorts of stuff that can happen that might motivate you, you know, that sin is one of them. I like that. I like that. I should put that into like just a video in and of itself. I think I've talked to myself into something that I want to talk about. Maybe next time. Not next week though. I believe next week is YumaCon. I don't think I'm gonna go though. I think I might go one day. Usually I go for the whole weekend. I might just go for one day just to be down there with the fellow weebs. And I'll probably have a whole. I'm not gonna buy a bunch of shit because I don't have a lot of money. I might just go play some games. Uh, go take some pictures of some costumes. You know, stuff like that, just to be out of the house. I don't want to be. I shut myself in all weekend this weekend. So I want to get out of the house next weekend. So maybe next Saturday I'll go to YumaCon. I may even go Sunday too. Nah, it's gonna be Saturday only. Walk around in there, go to the game tournaments and stuff like that. Take my ass home. I'm gonna give myself a budget of like $150 and not go beyond that. And like 40 of that is probably gonna get me in the building. So I've been talking about buying a sword for a while too. I'm never gonna do it though. Those swords getting more and more expensive. Plus, I don't want a sword in the house. I don't need a lethal weapon around here. All right, y'all. It's 10 o'clock. Ooh, that happened fast. All right. I appreciate y'all, man. Got 2 videos going up tomorrow. One is going to be about Dave Meltzer. He's hating on Phoenix. We're going to talk about that. And the other, I'm going to do a bit of a response to Maven. I will listen to his whole video. Not the whole video, but listen to his video and respond to some of the points. Should be fun. But thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it. You guys be blessed. Peace out.